G'day, bird nerds. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. This is the Bird Emergency live stream. A bit of a wrap up on some of the news that's around. Oh, I've got to get everything there. Oh, and by the way, I do have a green screen which allows me to put a nice scarlet myzomela behind me. But you might notice that there's a blue head and orangey red breast hanging around with me. This is Loz. Loz is a rainbow lorikeet, and Loz is predominantly green. Therefore, he disappears on your image. But I can let you know that the whole bird is there, and he will be all over me and flying across to the tree and his playpen as we go. Let's get right into some news. It's been hard, hasn't it, to get good news? Well, we found some. I have found some. This is courtesy of Monga Bay. I encourage you to follow Monga Bay. Now, this is from September, but it has been a little while since I've found good news. So, there's a bird that was considered extinct, the Guam kingfisher. Now, Guam is, of course, an island in the Western Pacific, and this bird had not been sighted for about 40 years, not reliably sighted. So it was considered extinct, and it's quite a handsome little fellow. But 6 were released into the wild September 23, marking their return of nearly 4 decades of being extinct in the wild. Guam is an interesting situation where there wasn't too many predators for a bird like the Guam kingfisher until 1986, when somebody introduced the brown tree snake. Now, knowing that this reptile has caused all sorts of problems in other parts of the world, people started breeding the Guam kingfisher. And then they've been released, 6 of them been released on Palmyra Atoll, which is east of Guam. Part of a larger plan to establish a breeding population there with the ultimate goal of returning the seahek, or the Guam kingfisher, to Guam once the brown tree snakes have been controlled. It's a very, very, very positive story. The brown tree snake was accidentally introduced. It was introduced in the 1940s. So somebody probably had a pet and it's got out. A rescue operation in the 1980s brought 29 birds into captivity. These individuals formed the foundation of a breeding program that has kept the species alive for the past 35 years, even as the seahek was declared extinct in the wild by 1988. Finally, on September 23, 2024, 6 young seahek, Guam kingfisher, were released from their temporary aviaries into the lush forests of Palmyra Atoll, a predator-free sanctuary about 5,900 kilometres east of Guam. Look at that. They're quite small. They're, I guess, about the same size in Australia as the sacred kingfisher. Um, yeah. Um, I really think I need to do a full episode on this, don't I? So, I think I will. Um, let's see. Um, I've got a whole lot of bad news. Um, so we'll skip the bad news and we'll find some good news. Um, this again is from late October. Again, this is from The Conversation. And again, this is a site that you should all be um, subscribed to and following. Um, Now, this is from Diogo Verissimo, Research Fellow in Conservation Marketing, University of Oxford, and Sahila Kadalkar, PhD candidate in Sustainable Development, Columbia University in the States. So, the headline is an Indian village went from hunting Amur falcons to being their biggest protectors. Here's how conservationists can handle the power of persuasion. And this is one of the arguments in conservation. If you make birds worthwhile, or you make creatures, or you make habitat valuable, economically valuable, well then people will protect them. So this Amur falcon is tiny. Its body is the size of an apple, according to this, and it migrates each year from Siberia to Africa and back. And of course, we've got to put that in human terms. 6 trips from London to New York. One key stop in the bird's journey is the forests of Nagaland in northeast India. Excuse me while I have a coffee from the Cockatoo mug. There you are. You might get a better look there. There we are. So there was a reservoir constructed in the year 2000 that dammed the Nagaland Doyang River, and that attracted termites. And you might know that termites, as part of their breeding cycle, leave the termite mounds or underground and take to the wing to find another spot. And that eruption of winged termites coincides with the passage of the Amur falcons. And the falcons would feed on these insects. As the number of falcons rose, they became very easy targets for local hunters, for whom hunting wildlife is an integral part of their traditional culture. The birds were hunted for food as well as traded in local markets, earning significant seasonal revenue for the hunters. Fast forward to November 2012. The scale of the hunt at Doyang Reservoir, particularly in Pangtai village, came to the attention of conservationists, like the authors, who estimated that between 120,000 and 140,000 birds, 10% of the global adult population, were being caught in only 10 days. So if you model that over a few years, that is terrible. Terrible. I'll just change the I'll get me back into the picture here. These birds stopped at the Doyang Reservoir to fatten up before their migrations to India, but were trapped using fishing nets hung across trees. A global media campaign was spearheaded by the environmental charity Conservation India. A hard-hitting short film, The Amur Falcon Massacre, was shared online. Oh, I haven't seen that. I'll see if I can find the link for it. To show the true horror and scale of this hunt, conservationists tried to leverage India's membership of the Convention on Migratory Species, and such pressure led to the Indian government making a global commitment to protect the species, to protect migratory species, including the Amur falcon. The government took swift action. It warned Pangtai villagers that unless the hunting stopped, it would cut off funding for crucial development projects. Faced with this threat, the village council imposed a ban on hunting falcons in 2013 without consulting the broader community. Have you heard that before? The decision was deeply unpopular with local villagers. Falcon hunting had been an important source of income, and many villagers were resistant to the ban. Though the hunting stopped, local trust in the council leadership was low because the ban was seen as authoritarian. However, the decision was backed by financial incentives and environmental outreach from charitable organisations and the government's forest department. This helped reframe the falcons as honoured guests and to connect local people more emphatically with the birds. Hunting was actively discouraged. Eventually, it ceased altogether. By 2017, a sense of pride began to grow within the community. Awards and recognition from external bodies, including the Indian government, for Pangtai, I think it's Pangtai, conservation efforts, helped create a positive image of the village worldwide. The community's emotional bond with the falcons strengthened. Villagers even held prayers for satellite-tagged falcons before releasing them. That's pretty cool. Falcon conservation became a symbol of local identity and pride, which helped overcome the initial resistance to the hunting ban. This allowed conservation measures to expand. The community outlawed air guns to prevent the hunting of small birds and extended the hunting ban to cover all wildlife for 6 months of the year. These actions showed the community wasn't just enforcing government rules, it was actively creating new conservation initiatives of its own. Human actions drive biodiversity outcomes. Yeah. These can be destructive, like poaching, or protective, like community-led conservation. This is so much like the story of the Philippine cockatoo, where poachers have become guardians of the species. They protect the nesting hollows. They protect the birds using those hollows. But you can go and listen to that episode. So that, I think, was... Oh, thanks, Loz. I just felt a warm, wet sensation, and I know what that is. Let's see how long this... let me stop this. I'm sure I can share this. Let's do it. Let's share. This is the short film that was mentioned in that story. So let's have a look at that. It's from Conservation India. Are we ready? Is there a voiceover? No, I don't think there is. I I should have done the voiceover. Oh, here we Not too keen on watching that.
Untuk kamu ada orang ini kalau ada apa rumah dia. Ya, oh, ayo. Oh, gimana dong? Alex. Oh, cakep. Nah, sama.
Wow. I prefer the good news story, but I'm glad that that had some effect and a positive effect, but it's pretty horrific. Reminds me of the shock I felt when I was in Indonesia and I was just at a local market and I could not believe the amount of wild birds that were just packed into those wicker sort of baskets and being offered for sale. Um, and that was quite a long time ago, and that was a real awakening for me, being a bird watcher and bird lover. Um, you know, all my life to see the economic um, use of wild birds. I knew about wild bird trade in Australia and wild animal trade, and I knew about animals being used in Chinese traditional medicine, and those sort of things were quite popular. Um, well, were very prominent in the media. That let me say that. But I had no idea of the scale of. I mean, that was one local market in one, uh, you know, one suburb in one city in Indonesia, and that's happening all over Southeast Asia. Uh, so I was concerned. let's. I'm looking for another good news story. Um, um, oh my god, that's not a good news. I thought I'd found another news story. Um, oh, all right, here's one that's fairly good. Oh no, that's old though. Why? I'm not going to that. That's an old one. I'm sure I found another good one. Um, oh, I did find one, and this is uh, directly related to what I was just talking about. Um, and I'll, what are you doing back there, Loz? Loz is doing something behind my head there. Okay, so this is again from Onga Bay. Thousands of birds seized in massive Indonesian bird trafficking bust. More than 6,500 illegally trafficked birds were seized from a truck at a port in the Indonesian island of Sumatra last month in what activists believe to be the largest seizure of trafficked birds in the nation's modern history. The birds, which included 257 individuals from species protected under Indonesian law, are believed to have been captured across Sumatra and were bound for the neighbouring island of Java, where songbirds are sought as pets and songbird competitions. All the birds found, where are we? The birds were all found alive and have since been checked by a veterinarian and released back to suitable natural habitats. Local NGA Flight says more than 120,000 Sumatran traffic songbirds were confiscated from 2021 to 2023, a number that likely represents just a fraction of those captured and sold. Amazing, amazing. Um, ah, look at that. 40,000, 45, 46,000, and about 45,000 in. They're massive numbers, aren't they? Look at that. Look at that. Amazing. Red and black broadbills and blue crowned hanging parrots, common grain magpie. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay. Oh well, that was kind of good news. Um, Here's one that is more in the birdwatching vein. Uh, Sonadia Island near an ornithologist and birdwatcher recorded the sighting of lesser noddies, a seabird species never seen in Bangladesh before. Uh, oh, of course it was. Oh, it's near Cox's Bazar. Interesting. In Bangladesh. British ornithologist Gary Allport and Dutch birdwatcher Jan Erik Nielsen took a boat from Bangladesh's coastal district of Cox's Bazar to Sonadia Island. On the way, while they observed a flock of terns feeding around a fishing boat, a lesser noddy flew in and circled the boat and then flew off. This is the first time the seabird was recorded in Bangladesh. Um, Fantastic. That's kind of good news, isn't it? Let's see what else we have. And this seemed like a good news story when I first saw it, but there's a bit more to it. China plans to trace wildlife trade. China's plans to trace wildlife trade risks inflaming trafficking, critics warn. Conservationists are urging China's wildlife authorities to reconsider plans to introduce a traceability system to regulate the trade of and captive breeding of 18 wildlife species, including several on the brink of extinction due to illegal wildlife trade. Critics say the plans, which aim to better regulate and trace the country's extensive wildlife breeding industry, effectively oppose the affected parrot and reptile species, effectively expose the affected parrot and reptile species to the pet trade, which could drive up pressure on wild populations. Unless the traceability system is sufficiently monitored by stepping up enforcement capacity, experts warn there is a risk the new system could be used to launder wild-caught animals. The affected species include African grey parrots and radiated tortoises, both of which are included on Appendix 1 of the CITES Wildlife Trade Convention, meaning their trade is greatly restricted. Well, I'm not sure that's good news, and that, of course, is the African grey parrot in the photo there. What did we have here? Is this another bird that you can find in an early episode of the Bird Emergency podcast, the Philippine eagle, the national bird of Philippines, a bird that when I'm next in the Philippines, I am hoping to go and see in the wilds of Mindanao. Tribal leader Datu Julita Ahao or Ahau, I'm going to go with Ahau, has dedicated nearly 40 years of his life to protecting Philippine eagles, a critically endangered national bird in the wild. Considered an unsung hero by conservationists, he has ensured the survival of 16 juvenile eagles in the wild and founded the Bantay Bukid Forest Guard Program, another forest guard program, to conserve the raptor's habitat around Mount Apo, the country's tallest peak and frontier of the bird's conservation. There are an estimated 400 pairs of Philippine eagles left in the wild, and their existence under persistent threat from deforestation and hunting or trapping. I'm always amazed that birds like that are hunted. Ahau is a trusted partner of the non-profit Philippine Eagle Foundation, a leading conservation organisation in the southern Philippines that hatches and breeds the eagles in captivity. Loz is stroking the back of my neck and whistling. So we're not going to do a deep dive there. I do have an episode on the Philippine eagle, and I've reached out to the Philippine Eagle Foundation. I want to do an update because it's 4 or 5 years since we spoke. That's the Guam kingfisher. Here's another good news story. It's a good news story. This is from the 23rd of September. Dream birds in the mist. First photo of lost bird in Democratic Republic of Congo mountains. And it's the yellow-crested helmet shrike. It's a pretty stunning looking bird. And of course, Mongabay. Mongabay does such good work. The mountainous forests of the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo are home to a strikingly beautiful bird, the yellow-crested helmet shrike. The species was considered lost to science until late last year when an expedition of US and DRC scientists spotted flocks Flocks of the birds gliding through the forest of the Atomway Mountains and snap the first photo. Their observations will help fill in gaps in this little known species, which faces threats from habitat destruction and climate change. Marvellous. That is good news. That's the kind of work you have to do. You have to get out there and you have to be trekking through forests to do this kind of work. That's a major highway in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay. I'll reach out to those guys and see if I can have a chat to them. There we are. Isn't that good? Isn't that good? Now, the bird in that picture is a Bedford's paradise flycatcher, poorly known species that was the subject of the research of Robert Masters, who was part of that team. That's good. Well, we found good ones. Here's another good news story. This time from South America, Venezuela. In Venezuela, natural regeneration helps restore a threatened cloud forest. Just go through the main points. Since 2018, El Tambor project has been using assisted natural regeneration to restore native vegetation in a biodiverse and endemic species-rich cloud forest in the Venezuelan Andes. The project's objectives include not only the restoration of the cloud forest, but also the protection of the wild fauna, such as the Andean bear, which is threatened with extinction in Venezuela. To tackle risks for the cloud forest, El Tambor project is also running an educational program on deforestation prevention and persuading landowners to allocate portions of their land for restoration. Definitely, that sounds a lot like the conversation I had about the sorry, just somebody had replied to one of my posts, which seemed very strange. There we are. So that's good news. Have we got one more? Yes. Oh, this was the one I wanted to almost get to first. Now, this again is from September, so it's not brand new. Successful Thai community-based hornbill conservation faces uncertain future. Now, this will no doubt be about funding. As long-distance tree seed disperses, hornbills help balance the ecology of the complex tropical forests they inhabit. 3 decades of hornbill conservation in southern Thailand have been underpinned by efforts to transform former poachers into conservationists who are paid wages as nest guardians, the same model that they use in the Philippines and other places. A new study indicates that education programs in schools and villages surrounding the region's hornbill strongholds are key to the success and long-term sustainability of the Nest Guardian program, which has boosted hornbill breeding success and drawn widespread support from local residents. Yet political unrest in the region precludes traditional avenues of conservation funding, such as ecotourism, leading the community-based initiative threatened by a lack of long-term funding and resources. And isn't that always the story? So, yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm going to miss that one out. Now, this is from last week. COP29 is going on now. United Nations Climate Change Conference. Will COP29 deliver the trillions needed to tackle man-made climate crisis? Actually, I must say, I'll share it later on. I just saw a fascinating discussion on this very issue, not really focused on COP29, but can a capitalist economy ever meet these targets? Actually, I think I might leave COP29. I think I might pull the pin on the stream now, and we might talk more about COP29 tomorrow. I'm going to try and get an interview. I've requested a couple of people. We'll see if I'll chase them up today and see if we can get that going. I hope you found some facts that you didn't know before. I'm going to follow up all of these people and try and get interviews because they're all important stories. Even if they're not good news stories, they're all important stories. So I'll take it from there. I don't know what is going on with the stream today. I hope it's been going out properly. It all seems to be fine from this end, but I'm not too sure. Anyway, folks, I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. I'm also a plant nerd. We'll be live streaming again maybe early and at 3 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Biz Bell will be with me for a conversation about protecting species on offshore islands, because Biz has 30 years experience eradicating pests, re-establishing habitat, and monitoring, especially seabird populations on remote islands. So we'll hear a lot about the successes, the challenges, the techniques. We'll go through all of that tomorrow. Okay, bird nerds. See ya.